Ready to kick it off, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to wait till 11:05, but what the heck, we'll do it right now. Hey, everybody, this is Dan Cerulli at Google. Welcome to the community meeting. I'm stepping in here. I did not realize I'd be running this meeting today, but I have a couple things on the agenda. Let me share a screen and just together. The one. You seeing that community meeting? Maybe.
Yes, we can see it.
Great. I can't, but that's all right. Did you start the recording, Jace?
I did, yes. We're good.
You did. Thank you very much. Okay. So last week, a couple of people here, I actually just saw Lee here as well. Rich and we went to Guadalajara to give a seminar on contributing to open source, but specifically to the Istio project. So I thought I would lean on them right away and have them give a little update on what happened and how that went, how it was received, and whether or not we're going to see a bunch of new contributors to Istio soon.
So I just saw the message from Lee that he's hiding, so I guess I'll start. And yeah, so like Dan mentioned, we went to Guadalajara, Mexico to the first ever summit for open source contributors in Latin America. And we did a 7-hour workshop for Istio open source. One of the big challenges was the knowledge gap. A lot of the participants weren't aware of Kubernetes even, but in spite of all that, at the end of the workshop, all participants were able to install Istio on a Kubernetes cluster and run a microservice locally or on said cluster. And there were even some of them that got to deploy the book info app and get metrics and dashboards. Lee, I don't know if you want to add something more to that.
I do. I'll say that Riggs knocked it out of the park, I guess is what I would start it out with, which is not only was it a 7-hour workshop, which I needed more than one energy drink for that marathon, but Riggs delivered it in native tongue, which was very warmly received. Most of them there, all of them there spoke English to varying degrees, but certainly much more comfortable digesting it, in Spanish. The Riggs also made an on the fly call to, what do you call those? Obviously, I don't watch football as much as I should. And quite appropriately so. Just identifying that, or recognizing after I think having had some conversations with folks, the attendees the prior day, that maybe we should adjust the content to meet more of the students where they're at, and it worked beautifully. Yeah, the content was very well received. It was pleasant and worked very well that it was not a large group, so that everyone, no man or woman was left behind. And actually, pleasingly, there were, was it 2 or more women in there? So it was
2 or 3 women there, yeah, out of 14 participants.
Yeah. One of them, I understand, was not only hounded me a bit, but was also hounding Riggs on making sure he had the right address for the Istio Slack and for where to go to look for help wanted GitHub issues. And so it was very much of the mindset of this was one of the few that was fairly Kubernetes savvy. And so, of the various workshops that I've given, this one was nice because the goal was to get people was about open source contribution, getting them comfortable, introducing them to the various aspects of the community, of which is in part why we didn't make it through ad nauseum labs on how to configure Istio, because there was a fair bit of time just walking people through the fact that there are working groups, there are community meetings, there's the Slack, the resources and kind of how to engage and the manner by which to engage. I'll lastly give Riggs one last thing before I, which is it was extraordinary. It was very convenient that the day before he delivered a Git and GitHub talk, which was another point of unfamiliarity for many. So yeah, I walked away with a lot more last weekend than I expected. Also, an education on reposado and other types of tequila. So.
Muy bien.
Yeah.
Yes, Lee and I explored the finer points of tequila tasting alongside helping the folks there. And just to summarize what Lee was saying, the focus was definitely on how to contribute to open source. So a big part of it was, hey, we have a CLA that you need to sign, and these are the working groups and the working groups meeting, and this is how you fill out the form to join the Slack channel. So people right then and there joined the Slack channel, signed the CLA. So it was really fulfilling, and I think it went extraordinarily well.
That's fantastic. The materials that you use for that, the lab that you put people through, is that something that you could put a link in here and share with the group?
Yes, so the Spanish version is basically a branch on my fork of the documentation for Istio, so I'll add a link to that. And the rest of the tutorial was the book info app sample that we had. What Lee was mentioning was that the specific tutorial, it's something that we already have in the works to add to the documentation, but in English. So it's something that Vadim and I have been working on, and there's a PR out for it already. That content is basically introducing folks to microservice architecture and microservices in general, because it's not something that's widely known in the region.
Okay, I'm just copying some links in here and getting annoyed at how Twitter does links.
As you're doing that, I'll say that, yeah, it was, you know, also in that regard, I think an approach that Riggs had taken was a bit of a softer one in terms of introducing people to a microservice. And so he had taken the ratings application as a standalone, uncontainerized app so that people could deploy it, poke at it, understand it individually in advance of moving on to a full-blown deployment of book info, which most, you know, half or more of the students got to.
Cool. Well, that's very cool. Thank you guys very much for doing it. I think that's the kind of thing that's very good for the open source community. It's very good for the local software development community, and then it's good for the project. So I'm happy that Riggs took the initiative to set that up. Sad that I didn't get to go, but very happy that Lee did stay.
Yeah, well, Dan,
So
I'm not.
Thanks for the update.
Very good. I will remember this, Dan. And just by the way, I'm putting it on record in the meeting minutes.
Okay. You owe me one trip to you owe me one trip to Guadalajara.
Anytime, Dan. Anytime. I'll be happy to take you there.
In addition to being Mexican Independence Day, Monday was also the day of a meetup in New York City that Megan O'Keefe organized, and I have not seen it. Megan has joined us today. Megan, are you here? I don't think I see her, so I will be a little updated on that. This was a meetup that was organized. It was kind of a one-off meetup. There were a bunch of us who were going to be in town, and Megan decided to to host a meetup. She tried contacting the owners of the New York City Istio meetup group, because there is an official meetup group, and she was unable to get in touch with them, which is a little bit frustrating. We're going to try and figure out what's going on there. Because I love the idea of local meetup groups, and they don't even have to meet monthly, but it would be good if they were kind of reachable, because it's easy. When we went to Atlanta and did a meetup, I contacted local people and worked with them, and that helped bring in an audience. We had 40 something people, I think, sign up for that. The one in New York on Monday was much smaller. We had, I think, 7 people ended up attending who were not Googlers. There were about probably 12 or 13 of us, including Googlers that were there. I gave a talk and Megan gave a talk. And then we had a really, really good, because it was such a small crowd, or just a really good discussion. As with every meetup I've been to, there was some combination of companies who were just on their way to adopting Kubernetes, or maybe they've started adopting Kubernetes and are thinking about service mesh and were really interested in understanding the concepts better, along with people who are well into an implementation and have done some very deep analysis of yours and some very specific questions. So I find it tends to always be that way. We had 2 very, very different talks. Mine was very much an intro talk, which is right in my wheelhouse. So I gave a kind of a concepts behind service mesh and why it exists talk. I put a link in there. No one on this needs to see that because you understand those concepts. Megan gave a fantastic 1.3 feature tour in like a half an hour with no slides. She just demo. She just showed a bunch of the new things that are in 1.3. Both recordings are up there. I highly recommend you watch hers. It is a great thing. I might insist that she do that for every single one of our releases from now on, because it is way better than looking at release notes and reading the blog for kind of grokking what's in the release. So I highly recommend people look at that. It was interesting that we didn't get any participation from the local meetup group, and as I said, that's a little bit frustrating. One of the things I've had on my back burner for a while is a way to kind of help people with local meetups and kind of give guidance on, hey, if you want to host an Istio meetup, here's what you should do. And I realized that one of the things is that whether or not you're doing monthly meetups, to kind of be available or have a list of people who can be contacted in this kind of case. So this I see some possibilities for best practices here. Yeah, so that's that. It was great. And one more thing is, I'm glad she left time on the agenda for a roundtable discussion, and that ended up being very very useful for over there. Even people who weren't in the middle of implementations, because they got to hear kind of in depth from some of the questions from someone who was in the middle of an implementation. So really good habit. All right, looks like someone put something ProgNet 2019 London with that.
Yeah, this is Srinivas. I'm from Pivotal and VMware. So I was at a ProgNet. It's a .NET and container conference, which happens every year in the UK. So I did get an opportunity to conduct a workshop. So I delivered a 3-hour workshop on running .NET Core microservices on K8s and Istio. So I have the link to all the source code. It has 13 labs in it. It walks people through step-by-step instructions on creating fictitious applications. So for microservices, how they are connected, a fictitious business scenario, and it walks people through setting up, using some of the Istio features based on the business scenario, like ingress, egress, and HTTPS, certs, all those stuff. So the source code is available right there, just in case anyone needs it.
Can I ask you about how many attendees you had in the workshop?
I had more than 65 attendees, close to 60.
Wow.
Yeah. So a lot of people were pretty much new to Istio. So it was a great opportunity to expose people to the Istio community.
That is very, very cool. And any impressions you'd like to share from it?
It was great to see how excited people were about cool things or a lot of magical things as people were describing about Istio. So there was a lot of excitement around Istio in general.
And that is really cool. Thank you for doing that.
Sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, as a longtime .NET developer, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. Very cool.
Yeah, I usually see mostly Java and Python or Golang samples. I do not
Right.
see .NET Core, so that's why I wanted to create something for .NET Core.
Right. No, I certainly just in talking to us, just had a question that comes up quite frequently.
Sure, and the GitHub link is inside the LinkedIn link, and I will keep updating the GitHub source. I'm gonna add probably 7 more labs to it over next 2 weeks whenever I get time.
That's very cool. Okay, I put the next one on the agenda, although I don't have anything to say about it. I know that I heard through the grapevine that Service Mesh Con, which is happening coincident with KubeCon, is the acceptances went out for the calls for papers. So curious, it is a non-project specific conference. It's about Service Mesh. It's not about Istio. So I anticipate there will be talk about a lot of different things, a lot of different technologies there. But I'm curious if anyone in this meeting had any talks accepted. And it sounds like no. Great. Well, I think there are some Istio talks. I don't know whose were or what they were. But if you are going to KubeCon, that is one of those things that's happening on Monday. So please feel free to register for Service Mesh Con. Jace, do you know if there is is this one of those things that has a fee associated with it or not?
You broke up at the last second. It has any what?
Is it a fee associated with Service Mesh Con?
You broke up again. I'm just having the worst luck possible.
I'll type it. No, is there a fee associated with Service Mesh?
Oh, yes, there is a small fee, I believe.
Okay. Good. I think that's the way they should be, and I hope it's getting donated somewhere.
Yeah, it is. It goes to the scholarship fund.
That's perfect. I like it when those things do that.
Yeah.
He said he hops off and he owes me an email response. He does owe me an email response. It's true. Oh, he's there. Thank you, Lee. Yes, I will look forward to seeing you.
Hence the hiding. It's hard to hide.
I understand you had some travel last week. Forgive it. If I had taken any time to order these items, the first thing I would have talked about was 1.3. Hey, everybody, 1.3 went out. Woo! My favorite thing about 1.3 is that it was 3 months ago that we released 1.2, and it was 3 months before that we released 1.1. And at the time said it's really important we get on time-based release and that we start getting these things out frequently. To me, that's a really big deal for a couple of reasons. It shows the community that we are serious about the project. It shows the community that we are diligent about the project, that it is important to us to run the project well. And I think that the practices and infrastructure that has been put in place over the last 6 months to ensure we can get releases out frequently is a big deal. It's important because we're getting, we're improving, we're getting improvements out there on a regular basis. And finally, we're hitting these release cadence even as we've had TPEs and we've had lots of patch releases, especially on 1.1. I think we had 15 patch releases on 1.1. I'm really happy at the work that the teams have put in to enable them to simultaneously have the practices in place and the structure in place so that they can do patch releases without having that activity throw off the new development and the release of the new development. So all in all, that's my favorite thing. I think I said that in a tweet. It's really awesome that the quarterly release cadence is happening. Like I said, the link up above, the Megan O'Keefe 1.3 feature tour is really good. If you haven't installed 1.3 and you're wondering if you'd like to, I suggest taking a look at it. Telemetry Lite as a way to get telemetry. If you don't need Mixer for policy, you might be able to eliminate Mixer entirely and really reduce your resource consumption. Is really cool. Some of the debugging tools that are starting to be built into Istio control are really, really useful. They're going to help people managing real installations. Any impressions out there? Anyone else? Has anyone tried it? Anyone done an upgrade? Anyone want anything to say? I assume that's because it's perfect. Fantastic.
I just want to mention that with 1.3, our docs also got a bunch of new content. I would encourage people also to read the new deployment models concept. That's a very important document that we released for 1.3. And it gives you very clear examples of the different options you have for your Istio deployments. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at that doc.
Yeah, I agree. You can tell I've been because my browser just auto-completed it for me. This was formerly known something as kind of, I can't remember, it's called multi-mesh or multi-cluster. This single page kind of walks you through, are you going to have a single cluster or multiple clusters? What are the trade-offs in going, single network, multiple network, and single control plane, multiple control plane? It's really, really comprehensive, and a lot of work went into digesting possible and what the implications are for a real deployment. So yes, that was a major revision. Thank you to Riggs who really drove it, and everyone else who contributed either before it was in cover after. Lots and lots of commentary I think went on that PR. So the docs have improved steadily, continued to improve, and I'm really happy with where that thing got. Lee, I think, had to drop off. Apparently, he's thinking about making search mesh training. That's great. I see one other person on the call who has an event coming up. Hey, Archie. Would you like to take a minute and plug your event that's coming up?
Yes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. So we're organizing Cloud Dev Fest in Montreal next week on September 27 on Friday. We have a lot of talks about Istio, open source, one talk about Anthos, and we're going to have an Istio workshop. So there's a lot of excitement, and Lee and his team is he's going to help us to organize the workshop. We're thinking maybe to have a panel as well at the end so people can ask questions. And we have, I think, guys from Aspermesh who's coming.
I lost Archie. Is that ready? Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Yeah, I think
okay, perfect. No, that's what I was saying. It's going to be a workshop and the multiple talks. I'll put a link on the website. So we were very excited about that. And, first time we're trying to organize something and see how big of an interest, if we should span a Istio meetup or, because we have a lot of meetups in Montreal, Kubernetes and CF and, a few others. So it's very popular, but maybe it's a good time already to think about Istio meetup.
Yeah, one thing you might do if you haven't done this already is kind of take an occurrence of the Kubernetes meetup and see if say, hey, let's have a service mesh night and have people come talk Istio or come talk service mesh and see how much enthusiasm there is there, and decide whether or not you should do it as just a maybe once a month or once every few meetings. The Kubernetes one can be about Istio.
Yeah, no, it's just we need to figure out how to scale, because I'm alone.
Right.
I'm organizing already 7 meetups and conferences, so it's getting hard.
Yes, I'm sure it is, and I know you a lot.
But we do a lot of work on Istio side in terms of community, promoting, explaining, and so I think we're using for now not Istio Meetup as a platform, but I think at some point it's going to be necessary to do that.
Right. Cool.
So yeah.
Well, it's great. It's great to see so many events. I love that we're meeting here, and we're in our weekly meeting, we heard about a bunch of different events that's going on. I think events are really critical for building the community, and I'm really happy to see that these things are going on. If you are having events, feel free to ping this group or on Slack. If you're looking for speakers, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. I know that we weren't able to send anyone to Montreal, but as you see, he's getting some people asked, and Mesh is going to be there. So this is a good group for if you're looking for some content for one of those. Certainly, some of us are in a position that we can sometimes travel for some of these things. So always let us know.
And definitely, if you post on Twitter at the Istio Mesh handle with these events, and we'll make sure that they get retweeted so you get more visibility.
And that voice, by the way, although you can't see the name, that was Jace, who works here at Google, and they've been very instrumental in making sure that the Istio Mesh Twitter handle is kind of active and is kind of monitored and is paying attention to these things. So yes, please do to tweet in Istio Mesh and probably Jace, but somebody will make sure that we loop in the right people and that we amplify it as needed. So, by the way, Jace has been doing a terrific job with that. So, thank you to Jace.
Super glad to do it. Thanks.
I know that lots of other service meshes are out there. Just spending a lot of time on Twitter, and it really helps in getting the word out to have someone doing that from the Istio team as well. So that's all the items I have on the agenda today. With that, I am happy to open the floor here. If there's anyone else who has anything that they'd like to say or questions they'd like to ask or comments on 1.3, the floor is open and it is yours.
Hello, Fedor here. We're adopting Istio right now at our company as a service mesh, and it's in production. And I'm implementing authorization. So one of the parts of the 1.3 changes that I saw you change is you're phasing out the whole mixer and adapter templates for authorization, and you're going towards the extension models. But I couldn't find any sort of documentation on building a custom extension in 1.3. I was wondering if you could point me to that or something. And then kind of going forward, what is your view of authorization and how it should, technically, how it should be implemented going forward, or what's your vision on it so we can kind of keep up with it too?
Before I talk about this, is there anyone from the telemetry or policy teams on the call that wants to take this before I do? I can't. I don't know how to use this software. If there's a good way to see everyone who's there. And who is that? Can I ask who was talking?
Hello, my name is Fedor. Yeah, I work at a company called Jupiter Intelligence. We're in San Jose over here.
Okay. So as of now, we are looking at how to essentially eliminate Mixer as a component. It's been a bit of a complicated. It has complicated the installs. It has hurt performance both in terms of latency as well as in terms of the CPU that it takes. For now, there is not a replacement for those adapters. So if you are working on a policy adapter right now, Mixer is still the only way to make that happen. We are working on doing some work in Envoy to, and by the way, so we haven't deprecated Mixer, just to be clear. We're working on ways to get out of it, but we wouldn't deprecate it until we had already had the well-defined path away from it. So what we are working on is in Envoy,
we're working on ways, WebAssembly and a WebAssembly distribution mechanism, so that instead of taking logic and running it in Mixer, it's something that's compiled in Mixer, that can actually be distributed and run in the proxy. It helps in a lot of ways. One thing is it doesn't have to be compiled into the proxy. WebAssembly lets us distribute it and run it without you having to build the proxy. Of course, right now, as you know, most adapters are actually compiled into Mixer. And it helps in performance in a couple of ways. It tends to be much more performant even than calling Mixer, and then it eliminates that hop. So that's the area that we're going. The first kind of route that we've gone is with telemetry, not with policy. And the primary reason is that virtually everyone uses telemetry, and it is really hurting a lot of people in terms of performance. And so we started with that. For policy, we're a little bit torn right now on exactly what the best answer should be for someone who has a policy adapter. And there's basically a couple of different options that we're weighing. One is whether we need to support an identical API that we do support right now with the out of process adapters. If we should have a generic Mixer Envoy filter that's capable of calling those, or if it's actually better for people to essentially write a custom WebAssembly thing to call their adapter directly. We're evaluating that right now, and if you're working on an adapter, I'd actually like to take some time and meet with you, if you wouldn't mind, kind of offline with the policy team to kind of understand exactly what you're going to do and talk through what the options are that we're seeing and which would work best for you. So if you would
that would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So
amazing.
why don't I give you my email address right now? And I just typed it in the chat, but it's cerulli@google.com. If you send me an email, then what I'll do is I'll have someone from the policy working group, telemetry and policy working group, whatever it's called. We'll set up a meeting where we can kind of go through a kind of in detail what these proposed architectures look like and how they'll affect you. Anyone, by the way, who has an adapter that's part of Istio right now, we've been kind of trying to find some people and have discussions about that, because we are weighing these different choices right now. So some of you on this call have probably been contacted, and we've already done some meetings and trying to get with Lee. That's why he said he owes me an email, because he does. But that's one of the things we're trying to do, is figure out the best way to implement that with policy. So I'll set up a meeting with you, and maybe we'll report back next time where we are with that. So in short, just so everyone knows, we're trying to eliminate Mixer as a component. 1.3 has what we call Telemetry Lite. Telemetry Lite is a mixerless implementation of the Istio telemetry stuff that runs in the proxy. It is dramatically improving performance. So for people who aren't using Mixer policy, it's in alpha right now, but it works. You could at least run tests even if you're not running in your production clusters. But we are trying to decide what the best way to do that with policy is. So we'll decide that soon, and publish design docs and kind of let the community know as we reach a decision. So yeah, I look forward to you.
I would absolutely love to set up a meeting, because that's what I've been doing for the last month, researching policy stuff in the mesh.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And in terms of docs, as Stan was just mentioned, once we have a process figured out on how to do these extensions, I'll make sure that we have a thorough documentation on how to do those extensions in the proper way.
Right. Thank you again. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I see. Yeah, that's the talk. We're just getting some details on what's going on. What's going on at the Dev Fest. So as much as possible, it's great when people can publish, whether they're videos or their slides, or if you're doing a workshop, the source. It's great that everybody seems to have that going on right now. Yeah, if you guys can do that, it really helps. And Lee's going there too. Man, that guy's traveling a bunch. Mexico, Canada. He owns this whole hemisphere. Okay, so great. Still, the floor is open. Anyone else with anything that they'd like to bring up to the group? All right. Well, as always, I am very happy that people took some time out of their week. 1.3 is out. If you haven't installed it, go. Maybe we'll make sure Istio Mesh has tweeted out the video from Megan, because it's really good. And if you're trying to decide whether or not you want to do an upgrade, why don't you watch that video, and then you can make a pretty informed decision. So great. Thank you for your time, everybody. Happy to spend some time with this community. Glad to be a part of it. Jonathan, I actually have an email. I have a meeting set up with some people from your company. I'll make sure that you're in on that. You're at it. Okay. Great. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a good day and keep on meshing.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.